and he thought it should be a free college education.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about Vlad and outlets like him, and what do you think about the fact that a lot of us have come together now in solidarity to ride against this man
Yeah.
and stay on code and you know build our own shit up. What do you feel about
Yeah. Vlad has been doing little funny style stuff for a long time. Beefs. Vlad capitalizes off the culture. Um, Again, we are so used to sharing our culture with everybody, and then they turn around and disrespect it, and then they get on code about themselves. So Vlad is all up in the mix with black folks, what's going on with us, instigating. When I did an interview with Vlad years ago, and Vlad took it down because of some stuff that went down, but there was another coon that he put on after me, knowing that I had a beef with this coon. And then, I went up there to holler at them about that. And, nothing happened. But Vlad, later on, I heard he was talking about pressing charges and all this old sucker shit. And so I had a bad taste in my mouth about him trying to pull that little sucker move. Don't put me in no whole shit. Don't put me in no
and the
little.
coon you talking about is talking shit about me right now. Oh,
Of course, he's
ass sucker
crispy
ass nigga.
A nothing coon. This is a crispy. He's a nothing coon. He knows it.
Fuck
A
that
moist,
nigga.
yeah, he's a moist, ashy coon. He's a no.
Moist assy coon.
Yeah, yes, he's a. So with Vlad,
Somebody spit on him for lotion. Go ahead.
so with Vlad, man, Vlad does a lot of little slick shit. But now when Minister Farrakhan, people like that come up, all of a sudden Vlad gets on code with his folks, and they start lying on the minister.
Right.
And I have a real problem with that, because with the Nation of Islam and our brothers and sisters there, they don't really debunk anything that they say, because most of those brothers and sisters come with a lot of facts. They come with receipts. They never call them liars. So what they do, they're reduced to lying on them. They will misquote them, not even misquote. They'll just make up something they didn't say and attribute it to them, and then try to demonize anybody black who's riding with them. And black people said, no, you're not going to shame us into not supporting our brother, Minister Farrakhan, and the Nation of Islam. You're not going to shame us from doing that. So Vlad, he said what he said. He made some very disparaging remarks about the minister and didn't want to take him back. And thankfully, everybody backed away from Vlad, rightfully so.
I want to welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, we're here with our brother Tariq Nasheed. We got damn near 6,000 people up in here right
in here
now,
heavy.
brother.
As
we in here heavy.
Yes, indeed.
Tell me about the buffer classes.
Yeah.
What are the buffer classes, and what can we do to stop them from undermining us?
White supremacy is fueled by one thing. The fuel of white supremacy is anti-black racism. It's not fueled by anything else. The fuel that runs white supremacy is the level of anti-black racism they can display and how bad black people are doing. When black people start to rise up to a certain degree in large numbers, we become a threat. That goes back to the Seminoles down in Florida. That goes back to Wilmington, when black people were very successful in Wilmington. The white supremacists got together and destroyed that city. When black people got together and built their community in Tulsa, the white supremacists got together and bombed that place. Black people are the only group of people whose success is seen as a threat to the dominant society. Other groups are not sabotaged the way black people are. Other groups are brought in to be buffer classes, meaning you'll bring in the Asians, the Arabs, the Hispanics, and you'll set them up. You won't sabotage them, and then you'll hold them up as the model minority. They're happy playing the second, third, and fourth role just as long as we're on the bottom. This is why we get so much anti-black racism from the Arab community out there in Detroit. Just this week, an Arab was arrested for shooting a bunch of black folks out there. In the Asian community, we get the Peter Liangs and all of these Asian store owners beating up black women in these stores. And then we have the Hispanic community, the white Hispanic community, who shows the same anti-Black racism in many cases. So they are the buffer class. They're happy being number two to white supremacy, long as they think they can be on top of us. So whenever we talk about tangibles, we start hearing stuff about minority coalition. That means all of these buffer classes. And for a long time, we've been going for the minority con game. Every time we talk about we need to get tangibles for Black folks, politicians will do a trick on us and say, okay, we'll do a tangible policy for minorities, like affirmative action. We'll give y'all affirmative action, but that'll be for minorities. And all of a sudden, when we go to the table with our plate, we see the white Asian, the white Hispanic, these groups will look at us and say, well, my family just came over from Mexico last year with no money, and we're doing better than you. So you guys need to step up. The problem is those groups are not being sabotaged. There's no version of Black Wall Street for Latinos and Asians where they just destroyed their communities like that. They've been destroying Black communities since the beginning of this country. Even now, in the 1960s, up until now, what they would do to successful Black businesses, they would destroy them by putting freeways all in Black neighborhoods, right on top of the Black business districts. This happened all over the country. In Los Angeles, that happened on Central Avenue. Right now, this very moment, they're doing it on Crenshaw Avenue. All my LA people know Crenshaw Avenue is toe up right now. All those Black businesses are being destroyed. My good brother, Nipsey, we saw what happened to him, and I don't believe that was a damn accident. A random hater just came and shot him in broad daylight. I don't believe that at all, but that's another story. Durham, North Carolina, everywhere you see, these freeways are thrown into Black neighborhoods to undermine and to gut the communities. No other group has that done to them. And the good thing about us, we get destroyed, but we keep rebuilding over and over again. And that's the thing that chaps people's ass. We're the people who can get destroyed, we'll dust ourselves off and get back and build that shit again. That's the thing that makes not just foundational Black Americans amazing, but all Black people amazing. When you go to New York, in the Bronx, did you grow up in the Bronx, brother?
I actually was born in the Bronx. I didn't grow up in the Bronx, but I was born in the Bronx at the time when exactly what you said, the 95 throughway came through and gutted out the Bronx. It gutted the Bronx, and it caused so much poverty and despair. All the white people were able to move out, and the people that were stuck was the Black and the Puerto Ricans.
Yes, indeed.
And it was decimated. And amongst that, that's how hip-hop, that's where hip-hop started from.
People don't really understand the severity of the devastation in the Bronx. You had white landowners burning down buildings for the insurance money out there.
Facts.
That shit looked like Beirut.
Facts.
Out of that, Black folks said, give me some speakers and a plug, and I'm going to go out here and create some new shit and created fucking hip hop. That's the amazing thing that chaps they ass about us. We can come from the rubble and create some of the greatest shit over and over again.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something. What is it about us? What is it about white people that they just cannot be happy unless they're making us unhappy? Like when they see us doing something prosperous, just like you said, any other community, you can have a Chinatown any fucking where. They're not burning those down. What is it? And if it is, it's isolated incidents. These are like anecdotal. But when it comes to us, this is something that time and time again. What do you think it is? And you're a student of history.
Yes,
you
indeed.
See that this has been going on since biblical times.
Yes, it
what
has.
do you think it's attributed to?
You have to understand, let's go back to the Middle Ages for Europe. Europe had a dark age. The dark ages, when they talk about the dark ages, they're talking about Europe. Europe had a dark age. The dark age was not in Africa. Our dark age is now. This is our dark age. But Europe had a dark age where their trade routes were cut off, and they were really controlled by black people, Moors that were controlled by black people. White people were up there stuck in Europe, starving. They lost all science, mathematics skills. They fell into retrogress. They were almost dying out in Europe. The Justinian plague hit in the 5th century and damn near killed every white person in Europe. They were suffering tremendously. They couldn't trade anymore. They didn't know how to build anything anymore. The kings and queens were sleeping in barns. That Black Death almost wiped them out. It was black people coming in, initially from Senegal up into Morocco and then into Spain, called the Moors in the year 711, who literally saved Europe. If it were not for the Moors going into Europe, saving them, they would have died out.
Texture, yep.
Those churches used to be mosques. You understand? So they created a lot of culture that saved Europe. After a while, the white supremacists, the people in Europe, they understood, okay, these black people up here running things, that's changing our phenotype in certain parts of Europe, especially Italy, Sicily, Spain.
Well, your boy, what's his name? Hannibal.
Yeah,
running all through them motherfuckers.
Exactly.
That's why they say Sicily. They they feel like those are the nigger Italians.
Oh yeah, they know. They
got the black all up in them.
They know their history. And after a while, they said, okay, if we want to, because Spanish people used to be blonde hair, blue eyed. They used to be white as Britney Spears. But that Moorish bloodline, they created fixed mulatto races all through Southern Europe. So they wanted to fight the Moors to get them out of there. So it took them 700 or 800 years to get the black people out of Spain. When they got the black people out of Spain, they got all of those Moorish maps, they got all those Moorish documents, they learned the trade routes. And like I said earlier, the Moors were coming here to the US and to the Caribbean trading. Once they got access to all of those trade routes, they started to hit the world dominating. They said, we're never going to be in a situation where we're about to die out and these black people can wipe us out just by sexual access. So the minute they got access to non-white people, notice they started with the sexual laws. A black man can't marry this person. Right. They started to control the genetics and the sexuality of people. Over here in the United States, the miscegenation laws they started to create so that they can preserve their bloodline, because they understand how delicate their genetics are. This is what segregation is. Segregation is them trying to save themselves, because they figure that their skin, their genetics is a form of albinism. This is how they view themselves. Mm-hmm. If you know, the original name of Europe was Albion. That's where the term albino comes from. So they look at themselves as just a form of albinos. This is how they look at themselves. For years, and even now, they have melanin conferences all over the world where they just sit up here and study our melanin and our genetics. They look at it, they study it. Whenever they do medical transplants, usually they get the body parts of a black person because they know that our organs are stronger. These are their words, not ours. So being segregated, they knew that they had to create a system of racism in order to protect themselves from being wiped out. The problem is this: being segregated causes you to start becoming more inbred. Mm-hmm. And the neurological diseases are going to kill you faster. Talk
about it.
White numbers are dwindling faster in those segregated areas. This is the thing. Their numbers are going all the way down. Now that we see so many studies coming out saying that the white majority here in the United States, because white people are already less than 10% of the global population, they're already a global minority. Family, when you travel outside the United States, you rarely see white people in large numbers. Hell, even if you go to Europe, there's a lot of black folks over there in Europe. This is why they're talking about Brexit and all this shit, trying to get a lot of black folks out of Europe. But they understand that in 20, 40 years, they're going to be a minority here, maybe even sooner. So they're very hypersensitive about their genetics. So as we see now, they're getting more violent. Why are they getting more violent? Because they understand when they become a minority, this is going to be like South Africa. They're going to have to learn how to rule as a minority. And if you're going to rule as a minority, you got to be extra brutal. The problem is, black folks, we've been about that bullshit over here. We've always been about that fighting back in that rebellion thing, all the way in the Western Hemisphere. So they're trying to break our spirits. This is where the buck breaking thing comes in. In the Western Hemisphere, you've seen a lot of slave rebellions over here in Jamaica. I did a movie about Haiti. That spirit is still there. Over here, there's a lot of slave rebellions over here. They know, man, sooner or later, we'll turn up on their ass. Right. The reason we haven't really turned up on them is really because we don't want to. Let's be very clear. Black people can shut this shit down if we wanted to. We are not shutting it down because we have a lot of love for white people. Family, my next movie after this, I'm going to be talking about some of the maroon swamp in Virginia on the Virginia-North Carolina border, where a lot of runaway slaves would go, and what they would do, they will launch attacks at night on slave plantations. White people couldn't go up in the swamp. This was a swamp that operated for centuries, not a couple of hundred years up there in Virginia. Down in Florida, you had the Seminole War, which was the Gullah War. These were Gullahs from South Carolina who went down to Florida, who was turning up on white people. They killed thousands of white people down there in Florida. They killed thousands of U.S. Army members, white ones. They don't tell you this about history. I was just talking about this the other day. There was something called Jessup's Proclamation, where before the Emancipation Proclamation, Jessup was a general in the Seminole War. Because the black people were turning up so much for their freedom, he actually gave them their freedom. A lot of black folks don't know this. Black people who were fighting with the Seminoles got their freedom with the Jessup's Proclamation because they were turning up so much, killing so many white people down there in Florida. Dade County is named after Francis Dade. Francis Dade got massacred by black people and Indians. They do reenactments of this to remind them, we got to keep these niggas in check. They know what we're capable of. They know we'll bring it to their ass. The white supremacist is a coward by nature. Our brother Malcolm told us this. They can't win a ground war. It takes heart to win a ground war. This is why they need their technology. They got to hit us from the air. They got to have all these tanks and all this militarized bullshit out here to come at us, unarmed teenagers. They don't have the heart to beat us fair and square. Go back to the Seminole War. The black people were fighting toe-to-toe with them, whooping that ass. Let's go back to Tulsa. A lot of folks don't know. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the first day of the Tulsa, Oklahoma riots, the black people were beating the white folks up out there in Tulsa. After black people were beating them, the next day, white people went and got a plane, put nitroglycerin and dynamite and all of these explosives, and cowardly went around dropping dynamite on the black businesses. First time in history an American city was blown up was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we're dealing with cowards here. And once we understand our history, we'll know how to deal with that.
That's crazy. We actually had one of the descendants from The Move on our show, Mike Africa.
Michael Africa.
Right. You know, because I think the next time that they cowardly dropped bombs on American citizens was in Philadelphia, and that was in the 80s.
1985, yes it was.
Like people don't even realize how recent that was. In 1985, yep. And they dropped bombs on The Move in a modern,
city. They blew up
modern American city, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Down in Dallas, when Michael Johnson, a couple of years ago, they had a protest down in Dallas, and there was a brother named Michael Johnson who got tired of police brutality. That brother showed up and started picking off cops. He started picking off cops left and right. They had him barricaded. They didn't want to go in there on that brother. They sent a robot in there on him to kill him. These white supremacists don't have heart, man. That's what we have to understand. We don't have to bow down to them. I tell black people, man, don't be a coward. Don't be afraid. Our brother Stokely Carmichael once said, man, the secret to life is to live without fear. This is why I go hard on these white supremacists, man. You don't fear death. You don't fear anything, man. The secret of life is to live without fear. Are they going? Go ahead, brother.
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but I was just saying, think, because this reminds me of how, think about how unreasonably scared that these police be looking sometimes in these
Yeah,
situations. Like, they act like the black man is just, we're just capable of really doing some true superhuman shit. Don't move. Don't, you better not move. Like, I was so scared for my life. He moved. Like, but white people can do all kind of shit. They can kick them, spit at them, fucking punch them, take their gun, run around the fucking car 5 times, and you don't have the same amount of fear that you do when it comes to a black man. And it's almost like how you were talking about earlier, your racial identity. You can feel some certain thing. They could feel it too. I
yeah,
almost think that they feel shit in their racial identity. Like, oh shit, today's the day that he turns up on me. I know what their power is subliminally, and I
yeah.
don't want that shit unleashed on me. Let me kill him before he fucking does anything to me.
That goes back into the cowardice. The most cowardly thing you can do is shoot somebody in the back. Nothing is more cowardly than that. And we see this happen all the time. Nothing is more cowardly than breaking in a woman's house, shooting her in her sleep like they did Breonna Taylor. Nothing is more cowardly than that. But you got to understand the mind of the white supremacists. They need a win somehow. Anything they can get off on us, even if it's an ambush, they look at it as a win. They got to get some kind of win under their belt, even if and the win has to be some kind of big unfair advantage. You got to have a militarized force to back you up. They can't go mano a mano. This goes back to the Jack Johnsons of the world. Our brother Jack Johnson, the first great black heavyweight fighter. White supremacists wanted to put somebody up against him to prove their superiority, but Jack Johnson would beat these white supremacists and beat these white men's asses left and right. And after he would win a bout, these white supremacists would go out around the country and start lynching black people just so they can go win. After seeing this black man whoop ass like that, just so they can go get a win, they would have to go and double team and go attack random black people. So we got to know what we're dealing with, and it's nothing that people should honor or bow down to, because too many people honor and respect white supremacy, and also too many people try to teach white supremacists how to love black folks, and that's some shit we got to get out of, because we got to get off this thing where we want to just teach them how to do better. Fuck that. These people know what they're doing. They know it's wrong. You cannot reform them. Using the term police reform is a misnomer. You can't reform a white supremacist. We're told that instead of punishing these race soldiers for shooting people in the back, let's just take them to the African American History Museum and show them a picture of Harriet Tubman, and then maybe they'll feel bad about shooting niggas in the back. No, we have to have punishment mechanisms for these white supremacists. And if the dominant society is not going to do it, we have to figure out other measures.
Facts. I mean, that's kind of what we did the flag. Damn, we damn near
Yes.
7,000 in this motherfucker.
We're in here heavy.
Whoa. Shit kind of crazy.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, like us coming together and kind of canceling this guy Vlad was a form of punishment. Like, oh,
Yes, it
word,
was.
you don't want to acknowledge, you don't want to capitulate to what we need you to do. Like, well, then here's your punishment, because
Absolutely.
he didn't feel like we could affect him in a way that was substantive. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And now here we are, growing every day. Fucking.
And the good thing about that is that you and our brother Royce, y'all put your differences aside.
That's right.
And got on code.
That's
That's
right.
the beautiful thing about that, against the main enemy, which is
Right.
the beautiful thing about that.
I feel like that's one of the biggest gems out of all of this. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Is that we can give people a frame of reference that, even if you had a difference of opinion in the past, you can come together for what y'all have in common, for what's more important. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of times what we have in common is more important than what we don't have in common.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how I kind of feel about Umar, man. I want Umar to win, even though I got on him, even though I roasted him, even though, you know, I still feel the same way about how that school, you know, I don't think anything is popping off with that. I want that brother to win. I want to be on code, at least be on code against white supremacy with
Right.
that, even if we have our own differences. Do I think
Because what he's saying, all of that is actual fact. You see what I'm saying? Like, but we need people's words to match with their actions too. Like, you see what I'm saying? It can't be just lip service. We've had enough of that in
Yes, indeed.
the black community, and
Yes.
a lot of people know how to say the right shit, but then they do some other shit. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just kind of like, yeah, we love what you're saying, brother, but that's, you know, you're kind of canceling it out in a way with your actions. You see what I'm saying? Like one cancels the other out. Like and they both have to be congruent with each other.
Yeah, I agree. And again, the brother, I think Umar is a brilliant brother. I think he's a very smart brother. He speaks facts. But do I think the Jesse Jackson, Cicely Tyson, Peebo Bryson, Tevin Campbell School for Boys is going to No, I don't. But I fuck with the brother as far as being on code and being against white supremacy. I rock with him on that.
Somebody